Palworld. This game has been under a lot of controversy over the last week, but that hasn't stopped it from being one of the best-selling games of this year and possibly of all time, with it breaking Steam records, being the second most concurrent users at one time. I would just like to go over the AI and the plagiarism, because in my other video, the ethics of AI, we go deep into plagiarism and how you should perhaps use AI responsibly, and we'll just look at these claims that are being made. Now, this VGC article goes over some of the claims made. They even have an update where the devs have responded. We'll get to that later, but we'll go over some of these tweets that have been heard, and we'll look at these some of these plagiarism claims that have been made. Let's go over what plagiarism is before we look deeper into it, and that's just the idea that you take someone else's work as your own without properly referencing them or anything. Now, you can actually still reference them, but if you're still selling it as your own, that would still be classed as plagiarism, as we've seen some content creators and such as the Illuminati, where they had references and links to the sources, but they weren't properly crediting them when like such as where they were quoting or referencing within a video. They just had the link there for you to find it yourself, which is still classed as plagiarism, because you still kind of, the user, if you don't look into it, it still looks like it's your work. You've done all the investigation in this case. So in this Friday, this person claims what is supposedly plagiarism. So this is comparing it same as ear shape, has the same kind of markings from Growlithe, the tail and such is from Flareon, and etc etc. in some and they have a thread on going through each one that these are similar features present in them. So this one, Palworld, is that the flower kind of part is no longer at the base of the neck, it's now at the top of like a hat. Another comparison made was with the models. Someone got the models from Pokemon and compared it to the Palworld ones. So we can see here that they look very similar in proportions, and I think they show another one, it goes for the full angle, that this looks similar, and then they have the side by sides of them with the points of them. This comparison is very nice, but you should turn on the textures so we can see what the colors that look like as well, as that would make it more distinct. And I think that unless this person has the raw object and doesn't have the textures, otherwise I think if you had the texture enabled, you'd see a big difference. You'd actually be like, actually this kind of doesn't look the same, or it does, but their visual differences quite a lot. You can see that this like main thing here is not present on the original model, and the tail is slightly different position. They look very similar, but they're not perfect, and with the texture as well, it makes it look even more distinct. And I would imagine that with plagiarism, if something just happens to be the size, it looks like, and it's the shape of a wolf, and you said, hey, this is plagiarism, it looks the same, it's like, well, is it though? It's got different colors, it's got different features of it, the size happens to be the same. I mean, this person could have also just scaled the model down, which is not exactly against plagiarism, because the games interpret dimensions different. Like, I think 3DS models are huge, for example, and when you import to Blender, so there's different interpreters, and there's nothing stopping from the Palworld devs to have actually taken that and shrunk it down. People who have been defending Palworld have said, compared to, actually, look, Pokemon is heavily inspired from Dragon Quest, and you can see a lot of the Pokemon is very similar to the ones in Dragon Quest, kind of like with Palworld, they look very similar to Pokemon. The art style is different, but the general kind of style is the same. So the bats specifically look the same, the caterpillar looks kind of the same, but they're obviously, this wasn't plagiarism because they have different features, they're not present, it's different colors, different kind of faces, different features, and you couldn't class it as plagiarism because it's not the same. There's too much difference to it. It's not exact copy that would be and then being sold off as this is our own original idea. That's what not, the Pokemon did not do that. You can, like this one, it is kind of the same concept basically, but it's just a sea serpent that is blue. That's it. So that wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to really that wouldn't be plagiarism. You can see this tweet here also corroborates what I said, which is the scaling. It doesn't really prevent, because there was people saying, oh, he scaled it down to show that actually it was unfair and kind of lied, like, oh, I think it's discussing how much Palworld glorifies animal abuse and such. So it was kind of like trying to invalidate his opinion, but this animator says no, it doesn't. You can obviously just scale something down and then trace over it, and this is you know, it's the exact same thing. Like, oh, you know, I shrunk it down. Would this be pleasure? It's like, yeah, of course it would be. And changing topology, so that's like the points, the vertices on a object, so the triangles, you can obviously easily manipulate them. So to get a cube to a sphere is easy. You just subdivide it. And they explain that tracing is a very important part. So to get a 3D model of, you'd go over an image and reference it. And they kind of say, oh, it's great that they've parodied and planning upon the Pokemon. It's what's another defense really, is that a parody is a legal defense. You can do a parody of something and that'll be fine. It's like you're not kind of playing off you're taking something and you're making kind of a joke out of it. And with Palworld, it's Pokemon with guns. It's a joke. It's sort of like, oh, you get this nice little cutesy little thing, but now what if you give them guns and make it kind of more violent and go a bit crazy? That's like the whole intent of it. It's a sort of parody of Pokemon. Now it also just explains that we're kind of focusing the target on the company Game Freak who develop Pokemon, but not the actual artists that have obviously designed each one and just been kind of shrouded as like and an individual designed this, and their work could be possibly used in a plagiaristic intent or theft kind of intent. So let's have a close look at individual kind of models. So we have the wolf that we saw with the side by side, and now with the texture enabled, you can see actually it's not the same color and has fairly different features, such as the kind of mane. It doesn't spit up there, that the ears seem a bit different. The color is black on white rather than that, but it's close. This is definitely close. But same general idea, body shape for placement. That's not enough for plagiarism. This probably, the looks rate is probably the closest here. They clearly it looks a lot like, except the colors. That's the only kind of big distinctive feature. The ears are actually different. The mane is actually slightly different. The claws are not present on the original. The kind of like patterns are different as well. Maybe the tail is different, and so therefore this in a court would be very hard to say that this is plagiarism, because there's so much to say that is different, even if it looks so close. That's the thing, it looks close, but it's not the exact same. The same this one, the flower is not on the base of the neck. It's like, oh, this is plagiarism. It's like, well, actually no, this one does not have these features on the tail. It doesn't have this on the head. It just has a similar color. I mean, I don't think you can really say that the color green is plagiarized. It also looks like a dinosaur, kind of like a brontosaurus. That's another reason why you probably struggle with plagiarism. This one, it looks the same. It's just a general shape is similar, and a bit of the color. Like the Palworld, I think this is the Palworld on here, has all these different features here that are not present on this Pokemon. This one is completely different, like flower patterns. This one has one big kind of crown one. This one has like multiple. It has these long like twin tails. It has like this whole dress that's just not really present on the original. And this one is kind of the same, but again, different colors, different features. It doesn't have this like leg looking thing on this like ball. They just look very similar, but I don't think legally that it would be cast as plagiarism. There's too much difference here to say that it is, and there's not really enough evidence to corroborate that it has been taken. And well, the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, have responded, and the official statement was, we have received many inquiries regarding another company's game release in January 2024. Not specifically stating, but Palworld. Pokemon Company wrote, we have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate that and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and world to bring together through Pokemon in the future. So there's a very possible case that Pokemon could actually send a cease and desist or some sort of sue or lawsuit against Palworld devs. Now, you don't actually need any legal background. Anyone can file a suit even if you have no actual evidence to do so. A good example is with Rockstar company Take-Two. They've sent out many cease and desists and all sorts of lawsuits against companies with not really any evidence. So the most recent one is with a development team called Remedy, based on their logo. It had the letter R in, and that was enough for them to say, hey, it looks like the Rockstar logo and we want you to change it. The one was It Takes Two, which is a game, and because they're called Take Two, they thought they'd copyright. It was like a trademark infringement on the name. There's no real legal background for them. I think if the court were to go through that, they would lose the case. But because they have so much money and power, they can just really extend the case to go for very long and just drain money off these smaller development teams that can't afford it and can't afford to fight back. And Pokemon is definitely a company that has a huge amount of money and are able to extend the case. Now they are a bit late to this because now Palworld sold so many copies that they do have a money to fight back, and maybe I'd imagine they would, because if they're seeing all this evidence, actually they don't look like they have a legal case to win. But who knows, maybe they will fight back, but it would be a long legal and expensive battle. But they've sold like 5 million copies now, so they've got a good cash in their account to defend themselves. Rock Paper Shotgun actually came along and have decided to get lawyers to look at the Palworld incident that were on the 22nd of January, and let's see what they have to say. So the lawyer they have was it was a Relic subsidiary, Reed Expeditions, owner of Game Network and of Rock Paper Shotgun, so their own lawyer. He's specialist in media law for over 22 years, so have it for this situation. So to go over it, he asked, did any presumptions apply to Palworld? Carlton doesn't think so, commenting that Pokemon powers are sufficiently different that there's no problem. The key point is, however, closely Palworld's Pokemon designs may aid Pokemon. Carlton still feels it's obvious that each game is the work of a different organisation. I don't think there's any confusion, he said. As an observer, the average person on the street, I don't think people are going to be confused with who it belongs to. And you can see again with these designs, they look similar, but they have different features that make it that they don't match. And so if you were to show these in a court and you ask the jurors, which one do you think is different? Do you think these look exactly the same or they're different? You're going to say, well, actually they're different. This one doesn't have this feature, this one doesn't have this feature. It's just the same colours, so the white and blue. It explains in detail as well. Palworld's Lamnal might be a Raccoon Deep, so this one here, akin to Pokemon's Wooloo, which is this one, but it has a different profile with different shaped eyes and limbs. Palworld's Verdash looks a bit like Pokemon's Cinderace, but it has a different colour scheme with red instead of green trousers. Palworld's Angalope might be a toughy blue-toned quadruple with yellow horns. I think it's this one here. Like Pokemon's Cobalion, but it has a larger, more exaggerated plume of white fur across chest and back. So you can list off the differences. It's not like do these two things look the same and you're like it's got this slight pattern. It's like, oh no, you can list them off so easily, which helps just state that someone has been very careful, I think, to make sure that it doesn't appear to be the same. So they think that they were purposely making sure that the designs they were making did not look the same. They're clearly inspired. And the devs, in a supposed interview on Japan Network, TV network or something, said that, we wanted to make it was Pokemon with guns. So they have actually said that, yes, it is based on Pokemon in some sort of way. And Carlton isn't the only lawyer who has weighed in on the Palworld and copyright. So Richard Hogue, I think, of Hogue Law, tweeted this. So I can't tell you what Nintendo will or won't do about Palworld. I can tell you, however, that they'd have a tough time winning on any infringement claim that isn't arguing a design copy. And that's because the game itself is also different. So he says the game itself is a Minecraft, Zelda, Monster Hunter mashup, unlike anything Pokemon has put forth. So you couldn't win that in a plagiarism case or whatever. And he said the powers will have elements that are similar to Pokemon, but even though they fly a bit closer to the sun for my taste, that's a really hard case to win. So I agree with, again, they're too closely related that I think it wouldn't have been possible just to have a different style or something to make them look more distinct, rather than making them like this close. Like, it looks like it, but it's just different. It's like, it's like a fan edit or something. Now, the next thing I'd like to go over is the AI, and I want to go over Asmongold's clip as well. That, as you can see, AI at Palworld acquisitions are currently based on vibes. So there's no real evidence to suggest. It's just kind of people are kind of saying, well, these models look very close to plagiarism and that AI could have generated them. But there's no real evidence. The evidence is just based on the fact that the previous game was an AI-based game, and the fact that the CEO has kind of just talked about AI in general. But there's no evidence, and the fact that the game was actually showcased about 3 years ago, I think 2021, so before even the huge AI craze that it is now, so before DALL-E and the image generators that came out, it seems quite unlikely that AI had a huge impact on the game development in the long run. Perhaps in the recent moments, but I'm not sure what kind of influence that would have on the game. Asmongold also had a take that got very popular. As you can see here, this person labels it as actual brain dead. But unfortunately, he's sort of not wrong. Basically, what he states is that artists' opinions doesn't matter, and that the consumer will purchase anything as long as the product is good. And this is why he's kind of correct, but he could have worded it better and been far more empathetic to the artists and the people who developed the game. And some of the quotes about this are like kind of proving his point. Asmongold pumps out up to 5 videos a day, with a better half them being completely unedited re-uploads of other people's videos with him in the corner shaking his head. He does also speak in them, but he's proven his point. The viewers do not care about the artistry put into it. They like the content and they're going to watch it. This is the same with Palworld. If Palworld used AI, or there's no artists were replaced, people have still bought the game. People have consumed it. Mutahar from Some Ordinary Gamer also said, that he's right that most consumers only care about the end product and not the ethics associated with the industry. And the industry will proceed with AI no matter what. AI is here, and unfortunately AI is here to stay. In games coming forward, and even games probably that released perhaps last year, probably had AI integrated in it in some way, some generative AI. This could be as simple as a developer just using it to help them code, or it can just also be an artist using it to do help them with their concept ideas. They might generate a bunch of ideas that will help them, inspire them for their artwork. See how it look in this kind of style and such. He did also double down on his take, saying that he's like, I'm correct, and to some extent, obviously we'd wish he would be more empathetic to artists, and we can also promote to be more empathetic to people and artists, and rather than just push them aside and say, hey, your opinions don't matter, we're just here for a good product. We want a regulation, we want some protection for these developers and artists. We don't want them to be stuck, be made redundant out and such from their jobs. Now, if AI was used, I don't think it would be a big deal as people make it out to be. It's sort of like going on the internet or Pinterest and getting reference images and then using that to then create original art. It kind of like that, except you're just telling the AI to do it for you. Now, there is a bit of difference that when us humans we take a bit more creative liberty and have our own little touch to it when we do try and take inspiration from other people's work. AI is just not capable of doing that, and it's just kind of merging them all together into what it thinks they would look like. So there's less creative liberty, but I don't think it's not as bad as just straight up ripping the art and just taking it as your own. And when AI is used, as I said in my previous about the ethics of AI, is that you should always have some sort of reference. You should declare that AI has been used. They haven't declared it. It is in the Steam's policy. Steam recently updated their policy saying that you have to claim that AI was used. I assume if that's heavy use of AI, aka you've just used AI to generate images, or it becomes a big focus of the game. But they haven't declared that, and I believe AI also does a background checks on your game, what you've uploaded, to see if AI copyrighted material has been used or some sort. So, and if we go back to our video we did look at, and I'm going to use this academic section I went through where someone's anecdotal experience with using AI, where they were found guilty, they were let off because it wasn't like a whole AI copy post, but in the case of Palworld, this could actually be a similar situation. Had it been like an academic sort of a game made for whatever thesis, for example, they could have been brought up for that. The teacher might look at that and be like, this is very close to Pokemon and you've not properly referenced it. And that's sort of the issue with the legal team when you're selling a product, because Palworld could put Pokemon inspired game, and then Pokemon would have better legal grounds to sue them, because you've mentioned us saying that this has inspired you and it looks a lot like our work, you've plagiarized our work. There's kind of this weird double-edged sword where it's I'm inspired by this game, but I don't want to reference this game because they then could have legal grounds to sue me, unlike an academic sort of reference. I would have preferred if Palworld just simply completely a different art style, made it far more original, didn't take such a risk with it really. Some concept examples would be nice to see what it would look like in a different style, because this style is, again, it's parody of Pokemon, and this style really helps to sell it as that parody, like Pokemon with guns. Either way, Palworld is absolutely killing it. They have a player count of 1 million at the exact moment, and a peak of 2.1 million is just insane. That is something you cannot predict, and their game production formula was just perfect. Same as Stardew Valley and Starbound or Terraria, these games just took what was existing and then added their spin to it. Palworld was what we take crafting, survival, taming into one, and then add Pokemon kind of style to it. You've got a winning formula. A game adding things people like and then put them to game to make it an original, fun game to play. With Stardew Valley, it just took the original Harvest Moon game from the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and then he just made it for like a modern audience, modernized it with PC and better and modern graphics, and it was an absolute killer game. Terraria was just back when it was first trailer, it was like, oh, is this Minecraft but 2D. The game is also being sold for just £25 or about $30 in the US, which is an amazing deal for a very large game that people are really enjoying and putting a lot of hours into. There's no microtransactions in the game. It's not a big AAA game which costs £60 or some $70. Who knows how expensive they are nowadays? And you're getting this at just half the price. Like, you could buy 2 of these now, and you could buy one for your friend, and then you could play together. And then you have to have the microtransactions, and there's no battle pass. And this is another thing that we should also learn on. Is just this is just not too expensive, but full of microtransactions. It's not a live service game. So you get it, you buy it, and you're done with it. Now, I think we should be more concerned with is the longevity of Palworld. I think it's an early access game, Palworld, but this is their other game, Craftopia, which is heavily sort of what they've learned from this game has gone into Palworld, which is great. But they've apparently abandoned this game. This game is still in early access, so they haven't actually finished it. And it does seem to say, I mean, its last update was in January, but I don't know if these are big patches or minor patches. A lot of people saying that this developer's abandoned style of the game in many people's perspective is more broken now than when it launched. Developers moved on to other games, and I really don't see this title improving. And it seems to be a trend in their other games as well. So they have that one. Here's this AI game that a lot of people were referencing that they could have used AI because this game had AI. This is also an early access title. It's not a finished game. Let's see, Over Dungeon. This one appears to be a finished game. Doesn't seem to be anything amazing though, mostly positive. But yeah, this was something that we should be perhaps concerned about, is that actually these games have been left unfinished and they've moved on to Palworld. There's no guarantee Palworld is going to have a finished game. Hopefully they do finish it. I think that they're going to feel more obliged that they will finish it because they've made a huge amount of money, and to just be like, we're done with this game and move on is a huge missed opportunity when they should finish developing this game and port it to other systems, perhaps PlayStation or Nintendo Switch if they can, unless they have that exclusive agreement with Xbox. Another thing we should talk about is this Nevergrave, which it really doesn't look too good if you're being accused of plagiarism from Pokemon, and then your upcoming game is a game that looks a lot like Hollow Knight. It's the same thing. Kind of, I think you can build a base or something, but again, the art style is so similar to Hollow Knight. And just to show you, this is what Hollow Knight looks like. As you can see, it's very close. And if I go back one, there, yeah, you can see how even the characters sort of design is in the wearing black and white, despite it being human. It's similar. It's just you could have gone for a different approach and people would have, they would have, this is a cool idea. But I think it is sort of riding on the fact that it does look like Hollow Knight, and people kind of what's that itch I can have which kills me for a bit until that actual game comes out. like, where's the next, like, sort of Dark Souls or Elden Ring? Oh, there's this Souls-like game. It looks similar called, well, in this case, Lies of P was a Souls-like. It was, but that was far more original. But it gets the idea that, oh, what's something that helps me get that certain game itch? So what should we learn from this as developers? Well, it took existing ideas, combined them together to make an original idea. And there was existing ideas that people already really liked. Games like based on Ark Survival, Minecraft, Pokemon, and Monster Hunter, even to an extent. Took them all together to make it a fun original idea. It sold the game at a really good price that a very wide range of audience could afford. It was also on the Game Pass, which is a different thing, but it was also accessible through subscription services if people had one. And it was also, therefore, it was also available on Xbox, which is another one. Also, that its art style is a bit too close for comfort for our taste. We shouldn't really be this close to resembling the designs of Pokemon. It should be more original and perhaps a slightly different art style that would have deviated it away and people wouldn't have accused it for plagiarism. We should also ignore really any of these, or just be careful with the accusations made about AI and stuff, because there was no hard evidence. But also that we should be aware that games are going to be using AI in the future, and us as developers shouldn't feel too guilty of using AI if we properly reference and use it ethically by using it as more of a concept idea, and we shouldn't just straight up copy the AI images or codes. Well, the code might be okay if it runs, but another thing about this game that we should also learn was that, again, that it wasn't built entirely from the scratch up. They had built it from the experience in their other game, so Craftopedia, which is a lot of what they learned from that game and its flaws went into improving this one. That, like, oh, this thing didn't work, and then when it came to this game, they fixed those issues in it. Obviously, it would have been better had they finished Craftopedia or continue updating it at the same rate as the way the development went for Palworld. But hopefully this game doesn't get abandoned, and it's entirely up to you if you want to purchase this game or not. If you're not a fan of the way they did the plagiarism, then don't. I haven't played the game. I don't play Pokemon or Palworld as a tool, so I don't really I'm quite a neutral party in a sense. But I thought I'd go over because I see a lot of people, I think, make incorrect claims. So I thought I'd just throw my hand to say what I thought of the situation. So just comment down below what you think of Palworld. If you think it's plagiarism, it's something that you support. You're like, hey, no, this is fair, or you think that it's not plagiarism legally, but you're like, it's just too close for me to want to support, or you're like, yeah, be down for it. Anyway, I'll see you later, and please subscribe.